Hello and welcome. My name is Jess and you're listening to Legaltini, your very own sip of law school. The goal of this podcast is to give you just a taste of what it's like going to law school. Whether you're already in school, considering it, have a loved one currently experiencing the fun that is law school, or you just want to follow my journey, I'm so glad you're here. Grab your Legaltini and let's take a sip. Hello. I feel like, is it weird that I miss my own podcast? I took last week off of podcasting because I was starting school and going to orientation, and so gave myself a little bit of a break to get all of that sorted out and feel like I was really focused on kind of the task at hand. And wow, had such a great experience, and I'm very excited to share some of those like specific stories and kind of what the week was like, and also about half of my school week so far this week. So I had a full week of orientation last week, and then this week we started actual school classes. So there's a few things that I want to talk about specific to that. And then the bulk of what I want to have this podcast be about is things that matter and then things that just don't. Everybody's a little bit stressed, right? And that's to be expected. That's normal. That's advisable, really, to be a little bit stressed and kind of trying really hard to figure out the routine and kind of figure everything out. But there are things that matter, and there are, oh my gosh, things that don't matter. So I want to go through those things. But first, just kind of like hot takes from orientation was that, first of all, and this is like so nerdy and a little bit woo-woo of me, but I kept feeling so, not overwhelmed, but just like washed over with gratitude that I get to be here and that I get to participate in such a cool type of conversation, and just the people that I'm surrounded with and the professors and the faculty that are so sharp and smart and care so deeply about their students. You can just tell that the faculty are invested in the students. Yes, there's Socratic method and there's lots of reading and there's high expectations for students, but there is this underlying passion, really, that all of the professors and faculty that I've interacted with thus far, that they have for learning and education and teaching and coaching and success. I mean, they ultimately are so invested in our success. So that was a really cool takeaway that I had from the first week that we were there. They do this whole week-long orientation where they sort of teach you how to be a law student, and they really believe that with that few days of extra sort of prep about expectations and kind of how to set yourself up for success, they have seen a lot better results from their classes, and our bar pass rate is super high, and the amount of successful job applications and people having jobs after school is very high. And so I guess it's just a school that's invested in the student and making sure that they are actually coming out of law school with the tools that they need for everyday law, not just this theoretical education, though that's important. And you need a lot of that to understand law and to be able to have educated conversations about it. But it's just neat to be a part of something where, yes, it's going to be hard and challenging, but we are with you every step of the way, and we're here for you, and you're the reason that, we're doing this, that this is our job. This is the passion that I have. So I just think that my university has done a really great job of staffing their professor level faculty and people that are in support roles for the students, because it's very obvious that they all care a lot and put a lot of energy into what they do. Another big takeaway that I had from orientation was to take note of the things that you're learning each day, because it all really becomes a blur. So even if you're not like actively taking notes during sessions or classes about kind of the law school experience and things that you're supposed to be doing and keeping up with, after that class or at the end of the day, just jot down some general notes and takeaways from that day so that you can look back. And honestly, there's so much that you think you're absorbing, but you're actually not. It's just kind of going in one ear and out the other. So as best you can, take some time at the end of the day or halfway through or something like that to document a little bit of not necessarily how you're feeling, although that's a great thing to do, but just like reminders and key takeaways and things you should be remembering to do, it will serve as a really good kind of prompt for you later when you're kind of thinking through, oh gosh, what did they say about that in orientation? You can look back to those notes and it might jog your memory a little bit. The last thing that I really took away from orientation and really these last couple days of school is just that mindset is so key. And I know I like harp on it, and that's, a big thing I talk about, but oh my gosh, it's just really been solidified for me that your mindset is so important, and the way that you approach things and being able to kind of stay cool on your feet. And, that helps in cold calling and other elements of school that are challenging, but just your mindset and knowing that this is a learning experience and you're not supposed to have it all figured out. If you already knew everything about the law, why would you go to law school? I mean, there's just nothing that can replace your mindset as far as a tool to be able to face the challenges that you are sure to face if you're going to law school or really tackling any sort of large, very scary challenge. So next, I want to talk about things that matter versus things that do not matter. First of all, things that matter and things that do not matter. This is like generic. Obviously different things matter to different people. And this isn't really that specific. So don't, think that I'm about to tell you how to live your life. That's not really what I'm interested in doing. Okay, so things that matter. I have a few things. The first one is being prepared for class. The last few days have been awesome. It's been so much fun. I many times have just thought to myself how grateful I am that I get to be here. Like, this is amazing. Yes, it's nerve-wracking to wonder if you're going to be called on for the entire class and you're just waiting, but being prepared makes it way less scary because you know that if he asks you something, you have a shot of answering it. And, you can sort of piece together the things that you do know, and maybe there's a couple gaps there, and that's okay. But if you read the material and really work to understand it, so you're not just kind of reading to get to the end of the 30 or 40 pages that you're reading, you're actually reading it for understanding, and you're able to sort of paraphrase it into your own words, and you're taking good notes on it, you're going to be fine, and it's going to show. It's going to be obvious that you've read the material. So being prepared makes cold calling or the Socratic method a lot less scary and intimidating. And you might not know the answer, but that's okay. And being able to speak to the things that are written or that you did take away is key to showing that, like, I did do the reading, I do understand these concepts, I'm just not totally sure maybe what the professor is asking me. That's okay. And sometimes that's the point of the question, is to sort of shift the conversation to something that wasn't covered in the book or that wasn't explicitly stated in the case. So keep that in mind, that sometimes professors use specific questions to, not because they expect you to know the answer, but just to kind of show that there's another element that we haven't even considered yet and what would happen in that scenario. So keep that in mind too, that the point of every question is not to see if you are smart or not. It's mostly to explain the case and figure out what important information needs to come out of it, and then also to stimulate really interesting conversations. I would be a lot more anxious in class if I wasn't spending ample time reading and preparing ahead of class. For the first several classes, a few of my new friends that I've made, which is so fun and exciting, we've just been reviewing quickly the materials before class to make sure that we didn't miss anything major or that our key kind of concepts are all the same. And that has helped actually a lot to feel like I know that I'm prepared, if that makes sense. So that's being prepared for class. That is a thing that matters. The next thing is being inclusive. And y'all, just be nice. Like, it's not hard. It's so not hard to be nice. It's totally free. You don't have to pay for that. It's really not difficult. Be inclusive. If you look too cool or act like you're just somehow better than other people, which you're not, they won't want to come and talk to you, and you're probably not going to make great friends, or it's going to be more challenging, or you might only be able to gravitate towards other people who aren't being nice, and maybe that's perfect. I don't know. But if you see someone who's not sitting with a group at lunch or they look uncomfortable, be the person to go and say, hey, or ask them their name, or, ask them, do you live close by to the school? I mean, put yourself in their shoes, and all it takes is a quick little, what'd you do this summer? Or what'd you think of that class? And immediately conversation opens up because we all have something in common at this point. There's, different people in your class that are different than you and might act different or look different or have a totally different background. But I mean, I've talked to people who are straight out of undergrad and we've had a great chat. And I've also talked to people in their 50s and we've had a great chat. So it doesn't matter. And I feel like I'm preaching to a group of middle schoolers when I say this, but honestly, adults are just as guilty as doing this. If you are kind to someone, they are going to remember that. And if you need help later, or you need them to sign a petition for something that you want implemented at the school, or you are running for some sort of an office at school and you want them to vote for you, they're not going to forget that you were the one that was kind to them. Heck, if you ever run for like public office one day, they might be like, oh my gosh, that person was so nice. I went to law school with them. What a good person. Or, it's just the effect of that kindness is limitless in how it can, selfishly affect you. But also you might be the person that prompts them to have a better day or be kind to someone else. And you just never know where that ripple effect can go. And again, it's free and it's easy. Just be inclusive, no matter how personally afraid of the experience you might be. Just be nice to other people. And speaking of that fear, the next item is being secure. So if someone isn't super nice or friendly, or even says something downright arrogant or mean, give them another chance. And I know that kind of is counterintuitive to what I was just talking about, but hear me out. People do and say things when they're scared or intimidated or even feeling threatened that they don't necessarily mean. And no one really knows on their first day of law school. It's hard not to feel all those things, and no one really knows their place yet. And so someone can say something to try to make it look like they have it more together than they do, and they probably don't. Give them some grace and don't give up on them altogether. It's not a great start on their part, I'll say that. But you get the idea that people say things sometimes that they don't mean, and they might really regret it, and you shouldn't discount them just because of that. You might end up being great friends with this person, and they just were feeling a little bit backed into a corner and afraid, and, said something that was kind of rash. And you never know if in your next semester you're going to have a class with them, or next year, and you have to do a big project with them, or you get assigned to work with them at your internship over the summer. Just definitely don't burn bridges, but also be kind, because if you're secure in who you are and what you stand for, then a petty comment shouldn't spiral your whole day and make you, lose it at school. Just treat them with kindness and move on. The last thing that I have on my list of things that just really matter is invest in your education. And here's what I mean. Don't be too cool for school. Countless times, y'all, during the last couple weeks, I have heard fellow students grumbling about what we have to do for school, or that another section got out early and that's just not fair, or, why can't we go home, or, why do we have to go and do this thing? It's so pointless. It sounds so negative, and honestly, we just started and you're already this disenfranchised. This is a hard thing that we're doing. This is a hard endeavor, and if you don't buy in and take it seriously, it's going to wallop you more than it needs to. My point is, go to the events, visit the tables when they're doing, tabling for all the organizations, talk to people, absorb everything that you can in class. Don't be so concerned about when you get to leave. That is so undergrad. Go to extra office hours that they might offer, email your scholar or TA, whatever they call them at your school, go to the section happy hours, do the things. You're not going to get this time back. And again, we're so extremely lucky to be in the position that we're in going to law school. So many people are not able to go because of financial obligations or family obligations, lack of opportunity, but you are here. And that is incredible. And don't throw away your shot to do this right. Okay, moving on. Things that do not matter, or maybe that don't matter that much. How about we'll call it that. The first thing is a real practical one, buying all the horn books or supplement books before school starts. Wait until you get into class and see what the readings are like, see what your professor is like. Most of my professors have recommended that, like, if you feel the need to buy a horn book, this is the one I would say. So don't just go out and buy all the, possible supplements that you can for your class thinking that is going to be your ticket to success. Honestly, grappling with the information that's in the book and fighting with it is probably the best method to really understanding, but I won't say that the supplements are altogether unhelpful. So my recommendation, or the things that doesn't matter, is don't buy them all before school starts or before you get into those classes. And the other thing is that all of my professors have the horn book or the supplement that they think is best, and they have a copy in their office, and they've all offered for people to go to their office and thumb through it and see if it's something that they are even going to benefit from. So don't waste your money on that. Trust me, you're going to spend enough money on books. Speaking of, I rented actually all of my books on Amazon. So far, so great. I definitely recommend. No problems at all with Amazon book rentals. The next thing that doesn't super matter is reading ahead for classes. I just don't recommend reading too far ahead of where your classes are. Now, the exception would be if you have an extenuating circumstance and you won't be there for several classes, you have to have your tooth extracted or something, right? That would be an exception where you kind of need to front load or stack your readings a little bit differently. But on the whole, stay with your professor. The teaching really builds on itself. And if you miss a critical step, you might just be wasting your time reading things that don't make sense or that you don't have enough context for. And then you'll end up having to reread them, which is so time consuming. And also, you want everything to be fresh on your mind when you get to class. And with as many cases as we're reading and different subjects that you have, you want everything to be fresh in your mind, and it is hard as it is to keep all the cases straight and remember which one's which and keep the details, which are so important, fresh on your mind. So, just don't really read ahead. I mean, there might be, like I said, some sort of a scenario where that makes sense, but for the vast majority of the time, that's just not a great use of your time. The next thing is, it's okay if you don't get it when you're reading. The key is talking to your peers, email the scholar, ask the professor outside of class to help you grasp it. It's okay if you get through your reading and you're thinking, what the heck did I just read? Reread it. I mean, don't necessarily read it cover to cover again, but if it's a case, reread the case. If it's chapters, read the notes a little bit more closely. Definitely don't miss the footnotes. Those are really, really important in cases and just in law school in general. It's okay if you don't just immediately get it. That's kind of the point. It's meant to be really dense material that takes some grappling with and kind of getting to the nitty-gritty of what it's even saying. It's kind of the point. And the law is complicated and it's complex, and there's a lot of things that are not just obvious and easily meet the eye. You're not expected to already know everything the day you start school, believe it or not. Wrestling with the law is a really great way to learn it, and honestly to show your professor that you're thinking critically about how and why laws are written. So don't sweat it if you're like, I am sort of thinking I understand, but I don't totally grasp it. That's okay. Another thing that is a thing that doesn't matter, we have two more, so second to last. This is asking great questions in class. Doesn't matter. Try to actually steer away from pointless questions or questions that are just a little bit showboaty. A professor it'll be your funeral for that. I mean, anytime someone's trying to be showboaty, the professor shuts them down real quick. If you want to clarify your understanding, ask a question. If you have an answer to the question that your professor just posed, answer the question. But asking abstract hypotheticals and trying to, stump your professor with how grandiose and how educated you are, it's going to end badly for you. We actually today had a professor assign additional reading for a student who asked about a what-if scenario in class. The professor said he loves critical thinking and the academic curiosity is amazing and he loves that. But it was just too far off topic. And so he rewarded her, as he put it, with an additional case to read so that she could explain it to the class at our next class. Call it punishment or reward. Either way, it's more reading when we're already slammed. So be frugal with the questions that you ask in class and just make sure that they are worth your time. I guess kind of choose wisely. The last thing that just doesn't super matter is having a perfect routine sorted out already. Flexibility is key just in life, in general, in everything, and even more so in law school with your study schedule. Learning to manage your time while being flexible and adjusting as needed is such a it is huge in a lot of things in life, but specifically in law school where you've got so much reading and it's dense and it takes a lot longer than you might think it will. Be flexible with yourself. I love using time blocking to keep me focused and know what I need to do and what books I need to bring to the library, and all of that is great, but I have also switched things up every day to accommodate my needs or what comes up. If there's some sort of an event going on at school that you kind of want to pop into, adjust your schedule. Don't just hold yourself to this rigorous, perfect schedule that you think you need to have. It's okay to make adjustments. Now, you still need to be prepared and you still need to get through all of the things you need to get through, but be flexible with yourself and let yourself adjust those time blocks. I always go back to my calendar where I do my time blocking and I adjust for what I have done that day or what I, am planning. It's a live document to me. And the reason that I do that is because then I can look back at the week and see, wow, civil procedure is taking a long time to read right now. And so in future weeks, I can prepare and, kind of time block out my time a little bit more appropriately, and eventually you'll settle into what is a more standardized routine. But that doesn't need to be the case right now. You're still figuring out how long you can just sit in the library reading without a break and without kind of walking around and, stretching out a little bit or getting a snack. Just don't worry about a perfect routine and don't feel like you haven't figured that out yet and that's scary. Just let yourself settle in and find what works for you. So that's the list of things that matter and things that don't. Obviously not an exhaustive list. There are many, many, many things that matter and that don't matter. Everybody is having a unique experience, and things that are important to some are not important to others. So this is my takeaway and the things that I am learning as I go. I also really quick wanted to share a kind of thing I've learned this week. When you are walking out the door in the morning to go to a full day of classes and you know that you've got, these 2 classes and you've got these ones to prepare for tomorrow, and, you're scrambling because you don't want to be late, you want to get there early to get a good seat, all of the things, and I promise that's how my mornings are going. All of a sudden, I forget where my brain is, and I'm like, do I have everything I need? And I'm looking around my desk thinking, do I have it all? I just wrote a list at night of things that I need to bring to school the next day. And that way, in my mind, when I'm calm and I'm, really feeling organized versus the next morning when I'm frazzled a little bit because I drank my coffee for a little bit too long, then I have a checklist that I can have. And there's standing items on my list, and then there's things that I add the night before. So things that are standing on my list are things like my laptop, my AirPods, my lunch for the day, my pencil bag. That is a standing, list, and you might have other things that's on yours. And then I add things in like this book, right? Notebooks that I need, specific items that I need for that day. So just a little quick pro tip that I am learning as I go. That's all that I have for y'all this week. Thanks so much for listening. Please check me out on Instagram. It's at Legaltini_podcast. Check out my website, which is legaltini.com. There's all sorts of fun resources on there, including a Notion pack for those of you guys that like Notion. I've got some templates on there that I really love to use. So check that out. Thanks again for listening. This is Legaltini, your very own sip of law school.